Hello, everybody. It's 9:09 p.m. Central Time on the 27th of November, 2024. It's Wednesday night here in the United States. We're getting ready to go into Thanksgiving. If you celebrate the holiday, let me wish you a happy Thanksgiving ahead of time. But we're not here to talk about holidays, guys. We're here to talk about seismic activity. So let's just jump into it. Let's get a display capture turned on so that you can see what I see ever so slightly better. And we're just going to start over here in the West Pacific. We are on day 11 of our 10-day watch. So we are one day beyond our 10-day watch, and boom, we got hit 2 magnitudes under what we were expecting, spot on in the location on the last day. Today, really beyond the last day, on the one day beyond. And we're 2 magnitudes under, though. So in the same time, we saw a 6 strike to the north, 6.1 to 6.2 striking in western Japan. We'll go over all these and look them up. But I just want to point out the spot we're watching for up to a 7.0 got 2 magnitudes under. So we have to figure out where the energy is right now, where it's going to strike next, and why the 7 didn't strike where we're looking for it to strike. Instead, we got a 6 and some 5s. That's way under what I was looking for originally. Again, that was 10 or 11 days ago that we were looking for that, but we'll get into that too. So just to bring you up on speed on that. Then a new 5 to 5.5 striking up in Mexico. These earthquakes are a day old. Get them out of their day old bread. Notice, all of Central America, silent while all this is going on down to the south. We should see the same size or greater to the north, such as 5.5, slightly greater. The wave is going in 2 directions. To the south, we've already seen it. To the north, it's yet to break. Now let's talk about Alaska. Let's talk about the United States. So as I told you at the start of this update, the wave went, we were expecting a big break over here. And, well, I mean, we got a significant earthquake, but not big. And then the wave went up as far as Kamchatka, and it's gone over to the west, as I told you about at the start. But what about over to the east? Hardly any large earthquake activity at all. No 5s across Alaska in the past several days. We have to go all the way back to the start of the week to even get 4s up in the Aleutian Island chain. So it's kind of radio silence across Alaska in comparison to the rest of the planet that's going into the 5 and 6 level at this point. So the wave reflected into itself over here and went out this way, and the wave went out this way so far. Now, I would expect over the next several days for there to be a large earthquake up in Alaska, particularly in the Aleutian Island chain west-southwest of Anchorage or west-southwest of Kodiak, and that would be somewhere right here in the middle of this whole hot mess of smaller earthquakes. I would expect a larger earthquake to break out that could go as big as what was up in Japan or over in Japan, which would be in the 6 to 6.2 range, striking in the Aleutians in the next few days. And really, if you just back it out, we're going to look between the United States and Japan for a new earthquake to strike that's significant. Not huge, knock on wood. Over the next several days as well, we should expect an increase in the United States off the west coast, and we'll figure out where to watch. Right now, we're dealing with a 4.6 on the Blanco fracture zone. It's a volcanic segment out here off the west coast of the United States. We'll show you on the USGS map. There we go. There's the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. It's like a lightning bolt shape in its own right, stair step or a zigzag shape. Now, those jagged edges belong to the Pacific plate, even though the fractured old plate that's there is being pushed underneath North America, supposedly. Right there along the plate boundary, nothing but volcanoes. Let me show you. We'll go over to Google Earth, and let me make sure my volcanism program segments are turned on there. There we go. Here's the East Blanco Depression. There's the Gorda Ridge segment, and all the volcanoes in here. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you there's a bunch of volcanoes in here. These are not erupting right now, at least there was one erupting up here at the axial seamount several years ago, but no eruptions going on now as far as I know, just seismic going on as the plate boundary shifts, and it's the same size as the rest of the plate boundary shifting currently. I mean, it's in 4.6. What's the difference between 4.6 off the west coast of the United States and a 4.7 from yesterday off the coast of Mexico or Central America? This is going to make sense in like 2 seconds. So 4.6 to 4.7 up here. Now let's go down. Look. Right down here, 4.6 to 4.7 yesterday. What are they tied to? Both sections on the plate boundary next to the Pacific on the east side, spreading out, equidistantly spaced. What do you want to bet? If we go look, we're going to find another equidistantly spaced 4.6 to 4.7, about the same distance from here to here as from here to down here. I'll just go look to see. So 4.6 to 4.7 there, 4.6 to 4.7 there, same distance to the south. What do we got? Let's zoom in and see. 4.4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and a 4.1. Let's add them together. 4.3 plus 4.2 is equal 4.42. Plus another 4.4 is equal 4.56. Plus another 4.1 is 4.66. And plus another 4.1 is 4.77. So in other words, if you take all these smaller 4s and add them together, it equals the exact same size as the 4.7 there and the 4.6 to 4.7 there. And the spread is 10,000 miles from peak to peak to peak as this wave spread out across that distance in 2 days' time, coming up there, coming up or here, here, and here. Now, the new spots in between them will get struck by a larger earthquake. So Mexico's in the mix, like I said, for 5.5 level activity. Now let's look at the United States. Going across the rest of the plate, where do we even begin? First of all, this is where I get in trouble. Start looking up locations in the United States. Start finding all kinds of weird stuff, right? Like, why are the earthquakes striking there as opposed to anywhere else? Well, we'll start at places that are not going to get me in trouble at all. For instance, a swarm of earthquakes striking inside of Yellowstone National Park. Well known, we get hundreds, if not thousands, of tremors at Yellowstone per day. But this is a stack of earthquakes, small microquakes towards the surface, that are not to be confused with tremors. The tremors are small vibrations as the magma shifts. This is actual fracturing that's happening in the plate, small, and it's normal. We get inflation and deflation that happens here along the edge of the North American Craton. Let me show you that. This graphic here is going to come in handy if you're a new viewer. If you've never seen this before, let me turn off all the numbers so you can just get the picture comparison on the earthquakes. Take a look at the Craton graphic and then look at the earthquakes over the last 7 days. You'll see that there's a line of earthquakes coming in from the northwest, and it goes down through Texas and then up the east coast, and it matches the edge of the North American Craton. And why are the earthquakes going across the edge of the North American Craton as opposed to just randomly striking anywhere across the plate? There's a wave that's being guided along here, and the earthquakes are just the byproduct of this wave that's equidistantly spacing these earthquakes over the last 7 days across the whole edge of the North American Craton. So remember the Craton diagram, and then the earthquakes over the last 2 days still show it, so we don't even have to look at the whole week. 48 hours shows us a diagonal line of earthquakes going along that edge of the Craton down into Yellowstone. The arrows, the earthquakes, are focusing in on the edge of the Craton. And it's this wave that's focusing in on the edge of the Craton. And once it gets down here to Texas, it's forced, like a waveguide in a microwave, to force that wave around the bend of the edge of the Craton itself, and it drops off earthquakes at the bend points, equidistantly spaced all the way across. And as this seismic wave is going down and around and back up the Craton edge down through Texas, this looks like a river. This is actually a bulge. This here is a 1,000-foot rise from here at San Antonio up to here, all the way around the edge of the Craton there. So a huge bulge here, and the wave is coming down and going up and over to the east. So there's volcanoes across the edge of the Craton most people don't know about or talk about that are in areas where you wouldn't even really think, and they're all at bends in the plate. It's not chance. This wave was guided to these spots previously, and Mother Nature broke with pressure from below. Now, once we get over into the New Madrid seismic zone, this is not a drill point. This is directly on the New Madrid seismic zone, directly in the middle of the New Madrid. There are no drill points there. We can go look it up if we need to. But this gets me up to the northeast, where nobody's looking this stuff up. I checked the mainstream media. I checked it all. Ohio, everything. I even checked their local news. Let's go look and see what's up here next to Columbiana, Ohio. All right, it didn't load. Whatever. God save me on that. Let's get on over to the west-northwest and just call this one what it is. We're going to look for a new increase to happen off the coast by Eureka, California. So over the past few days, 4.6 a few days back, that was up here off the coast to the northwest. A 4.6 today off the coast of Oregon. I'm looking for something just a little bit bigger to come in here in Northern California. Let me show you why and where. One more time, we got a 4.6 up here on the north side several days ago. We had a 4.6 today here off the coast of Oregon. And I'm going to look down here, somewhat equidistantly spaced. So right off the plate boundary on the San Andreas, where Eureka comes in and goes down towards the Napa Valley, north of the Bay Area, we'll watch in here for a new upper 4 to low 5 to strike in the next several days. Same time that goes on, I would expect all the way down south, right where the plate boundary meets into Imperial, or at Salton Sea, Southern California, San Diego area, for a similar sized event to take place, but it may come out as a swarm of earthquakes. So all the way along the coast, San Andreas, creeping section lit up, and it's going down and bypassing. Normally we jump over into the valley. Instead, we're carrying on and saturating Southern California. It is just full. Look at it. 48 hours. Number of earthquakes. We call this a frequency increase when this takes place. So the magnitudes are actually small. Take a look. Zeros, a bunch of zeros, ones, and a few twos. But the number of them and the spread across the whole area lets us know this wave is focusing in on Southern California now, and there should be a new break here as well around the same time as the break on the north side. So we're talking days here, not long. This whole forecast is for 7 days. Over to the east, we would expect Texas to get hit again. So I would expect Texas to take a step up. We should see a new 4.5 to 4.9 to strike down in Texas. That's pretty big for Texas. And it should strike somewhere between our current sets of earthquakes. So that puts us southeast of Amarillo or northeast of Midland. I'd watch there, central, northwest Texas, or central Texas, for that to take place. I would also expect a new swarm outbreak on the New Madrid seismic zone, but it should stay small, knock on wood. I live here, and I've never felt an earthquake, knock on wood. And that takes me back to the start of the update, which is over here to the West Pacific. 11 days ago, we knocked on wood and hoped that I would get it wrong. We do not want to be right on large earthquake activity. I'd rather have a spread go from Japan down to Philippines and have it be a magnitude under. Again, if this was 1 magnitude larger, that's it. That's the earthquake we're looking for. But here at a 6, and it's spread out, good news for the people in the West Pacific, bad news for my earthquake forecasting method, which is looking for a single large break to happen in the middle instead of a spread. I had 2 choices 10 days ago. Is there going to be a spread across here, or are we going to get a focus in the middle and get a big break? I chose to warn for the big break as opposed to the spread. There it is. Lesson learned. Okay, let's be serious now. Do you have an earthquake plan? Because we are talking about 5.0 level activity. It is enough to potentially, if it strikes on land, to cause localized power outages. Do you have an emergency kit? Do you have the appropriate things necessary to get you through a power outage or a food shortage or water shortage for any period of time? You should have those things taken care of. I don't sell any of those things. I just tell people to be prepared for those types of situations. There's a phrase you can remember, and this is for real. And it's kind of cheesy sounding or whatever, but it really sticks. Don't be scared. You need to be prepared. So with earthquakes, we can take away the fear of the randomness of earthquakes that people used to say existed. And now we can plot this more like a flood and get the trajectory for it down. And I can tell you, if you see a storm that drops a bunch of rain and you live downstream from where the storm dropped the rain and you live along a river, you know to pay attention for flooding. Now, when the flood happens, of course, there's still drama and there's angst and problems, but the fear of a flood can be alleviated by paying attention to what's happening upstream so that you can be prepared for it. And the same thing goes for earthquakes. It flows like a river around the planet, following these red lines that I showed you at the start of this update, and I'll keep showing you now, the USGS map. These are acting like rivers, if you want to think of it like that, and coming up from down below, the West Pacific in particular, where our deep earthquakes are, that are raised high off the planet here for easy identification purposes. Where the deep earthquakes are, think of it like upwelling water. But in this case, we're upwelling a wave, and the wave is coming up and then spreading along these rivers out and away from where it's coming up. Path of least resistance style. And instead of going downhill, it's traveling out and away. But you get the analogy. You can be prepared for this kind of stuff now that we understand their earthquakes are not random and that they're following a trajectory, a path, and that they're the same size as they're spreading out across the planet. And that if you get a big hammering action that comes in on the underside of the plate somewhere, you would look up above it towards the surface for some kind of effect. A few days later, as the wave is vibrating up, we get an earthquake down below, letting us know something's there. And then a few days later, up above it, boom, 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 spread up, out, and away around the planet. There's a wave that's spreading around the planet. That's the big discovery in this, that there's a separate wave that's traveling through the plates, and it's dropping off the earthquakes along the way as it spreads. And the earthquakes are somewhat equidistantly spaced, as if it's a standing wave of some kind, which it most likely is, reflecting back into itself, and it increases in amplitude and magnitude, and then spreads to the next region, trying to equalize across the planet. It's amazing. Hello. Everybody, it's 2:33 p.m. Central Time on the 5th of December, 2024, Thursday, still here in the United States, and I'm back live. As you can see, everything here is now working. Now, the weird thing is, I haven't changed anything. I haven't downloaded anything. I haven't rebooted anything. I haven't even restarted my computer. So I got shut down while I was live. My copy of Earthquake 3D here got shut off by someone, hacked into my system and shut down the program, destroyed it somehow, completely blacking it out. It's crazy. I cannot believe they just did this. And then they shut off Starlink. And then they shut off my landline. Who's they? The government. It's, well, in case you don't know, the USGS called for my arrest. They filed false legal claims against my channel, trying to get my channel taken down. And then said I stole their logo and was improperly using their logo, which carried a 20-year penalty in jail. Cannot believe they cooked that shit up. So here we are now, and I go off when I had 12,000 people, the most I've ever had in my live stream, and they killed my copy of Earthquake 3D, and it wouldn't reload. So I just sat here for the last, hour and a half complaining, typing stuff on social media, telling everybody, people gaslighting me, trying to tell me it's technical errors and shit like that, not realizing that the government's called for my arrest and listed me as a threat on the Department of Homeland Security website, which really didn't help things, I don't think, with my internet connectivity. I think that once you get listed as a threat on the Department of Homeland Security website, DHS.gov, from that point on, your life's over for the rest of your life, even if you're alive. It is what it is, man. I didn't do anything wrong. Why do they call me a threat on the Department of Homeland Security website, man? Dude, I'm just the earthquake guy. For crying out loud. They're just really, really upset about what I found, which conflicts with just years worth of professional banter. That probably billions of dollars of textbooks have been printed saying things can't be done earthquake forecasting wise. I think that might be playing into why the professionals are so butthurt about me doing updates live. While they're, again, they see it as a form of competition almost, right? They want you guys all to be paying attention to them on the mainstream media. They don't want 12, 15, 20,000 people watching Dutch Sense when they should be watching Dr. Lucy Jones on TV. Jones! Jones! Okay, all right. Look, you want earthquakes? I got earthquakes for you, baby. We got the biggest earthquake in the last couple of years on the West Coast, right in the middle of our warned area. And if you want to hear the warning, it's over on my YouTube channel. You're welcome to go check it out. Let's go over it quickly and go take a look at my YouTube channel. Let me invite everybody here who's new. Please do not be too turned off by me being a little upset about getting shut down by the government. You would be upset too if you discovered an earthquake forecasting method and the professionals came after you instead of, like, wanting to talk to you about it, right? You'd start to think there was something weird going on if, your internet goes down every time a large earthquake hits somewhere on the planet, right? Okay, so what do we got going on? Let's zoom in and see. All three agencies are now confirming that it's a 7.0. It started out at 6.6. Then it was immediately taken up to 7.3 by the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Then it was brought back down to 6.8 to 6.9. Then it was brought back up to 7 to 7.1. Now it's been brought back down to 7. And USGS has it at 7. Now the official location is offshore of Cape Mendocino, and it's called California Earthquake. Now, I personally have never seen this classification from the USGS. Here, location, California earthquake, this is very odd for them to have this. This must be a Zoomer, maybe somebody who's just fresh out of college is working at the USGS for the day, and they decided to do this. I don't know why they would do that, but that is so bizarre. We're just going to skip over that, and we're going to go put the coordinates in to go show you what's at the earthquake epicenter. Now, we're all going on the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, the southern part of the Juan de Fuca. It is like a lightning bolt shape out here. It's actually like a letter M. You can't really see the northern part. You can see the volcanoes all coming in from the northwest, and then it makes a hard bend southwest, like a triangle, and it does it twice. So it's like a letter M or a lightning bolt, and it comes down and meets into the Gorda Escarpment, which then goes in and makes a bend down to the south into the San Andreas. This is where the San Andreas starts, and it goes down to the east by southeast. I'm going to show you on the USGS map. Juan de Fuca. Jagged edges of the Juan de Fuca go into the San Andreas and then down to the southeast. Now look what's going on here. Going from the break point over to the east, all the way over to here, and you'll notice down here, they've got a 5. Oh wait, they removed it and changed it to a 4. They had a 5.8 earthquake reported here around the same time as the 7 struck here. But I would think a 5.8 down here around the same time as the 7 here really just means that from where the 5.8 was, that's at Cobb, California, Geysers, California, back up to the Gorda Escarpment, the whole area shifted, and that was just a registration of the 7 as a 6, basically, all the way down here. Let me show you what's there, where the 6 was reported, or the 5.8. See where it says Geyser Peak Volcano and Clear Lake Volcanic Field? It was reported right in here in the geothermal pumping operations, and they have since removed the quake. So it was most likely a reverberation or an actual registration of the quake, the 7, as a 6, all the way down here. That it was the same quake, basically, is what I'm saying. So they removed the 1, that's fine. Again, the whole area shifted. I would expect that everybody from, let's say, central Oregon, all the way down to beyond the Bay Area, down to, let's say, Monterey Bay, probably actually felt the earthquake. Maybe even further, because of the location. If it was out here in the ocean, several hundred miles out on the Juan de Fuca, a 7, people might not even feel it on land. But here, it goes right down the San Andreas and right up along the coast. Both areas in both directions will feel it, and the red line is the plate boundary. Think of these like cracks between a plate that go from the surface all the way down to the bottom of the plate. And they're all the way around the whole planet where each plate meets up against one another. Well, that's the San Andreas we know it as. And there's a line of quakes coming out from it going to the east-southeast. I would watch to the east-southeast for additional activity to develop of significant size. This means Southern California, 5.5. This means Texas, 5.0 level activity. This means big swarming out in the Midwest, Oklahoma and the New Madrid seismic zone, but I would think the bigger of the bunch would strike in Oklahoma. And then East Coast. In between our sets of earthquakes on the East Coast, we even have to watch. And you can see up in Maine and right at the Canada border, a bunch of zeros, ones, twos, and a 3. And all the way down south at South Carolina, 1.6. Well, between those two, in the middle, in between the two, we should see a new break that's significant this week, going up to near 5.0. And who's in the middle? Look, you've got, what, Washington, D.C., Delaware, New Jersey. Now, we already had a 5.0 in New Jersey in April of this year, the biggest in 10 years for the whole East Coast, directly below Trump's golf course at Bedminster in New Jersey. I'm not saying it's going to happen again there. I'm just saying in the middle, we have D.C. is in the middle. So I have to watch everywhere from, let's say, Virginia all the way up to the Canada border at the Great Lakes. Let me show you one more. If you don't know where Virginia is, hold on. There's going to be a bunch of people who are like, Virginia, is that on the West Coast? So right in here, we've got Virginia, then we've got D.C., we've got a whole bunch of East Coast states, and then we go right up, of course, right to the Canada border. We have to watch from the red arrow all the way down to Virginia for a potential for 5.0 plus this week. Same for Texas. We have to watch for 5.0 plus from Fort Stockton to Dallas, the center being Midland right here. But I would look at the center for the break. Swarms could go up into the 4.0 range on the New Madrid and in Oklahoma. And Southern California, I would watch down by Salton Sea for 5.5 plus in the next 7 to 10 days at the most. Let me show you why. We got this going on up to the northwest, and you see the red line, goes down to the south, meets up with the Imperial Fault. Now look at the United States on the USGS map. Just a big blank open slate, right? Okay, now look at this. Craton diagram. Put this out 14 years ago. This is the way the flow normally goes every week. Goes down through Texas and up the East Coast. So, big flood coming in on the West Coast, if you will, if you think of it like a flood of water, and it's going to be going along that edge of the Craton all the way over to the east. And if you deposit a bunch of water at the head of a river, up the top of a river, front of a river, riverhead, it's going to go all the way down, and it's going to flood all the way down. We wouldn't be shocked if we see a big storm upstream from us, and then downstream we see a bunch of water flow. Well, the same thing's going on with seismic. Uh-oh.